When we use the word system in this video, we are not referring to any specific political, cultural, or religious method of doing things. As an alternative, we are referring to what appears to be the driving force behind all of these, which is what causes a wide variety of human behaviors and mental states such as anger and anxiety. In essence, it is the enslavement of our environment to the whims of the environment. It becomes abundantly clear, as we contemplate the human condition, that a great number of us are subject to a significant amount of influence and control from the world that exists outside of ourselves. On the other hand, when we are deprived of things that we desire from the outside world, we feel a sense of sadness. Our happiness is frequently contingent on obtaining what we want from the outside world. We are profoundly impacted by the approval and disapproval of others. Praise has the power to elevate us, while dislike has the ability to make us miserable. It is interesting to note that the more we want something, the more we are willing to give up in order to bring it into our possession. On the other hand, the more one is opposed to something, the greater the price that one is willing to pay in order to avoid it. As a result of these cycles of desire, aversion, love, hate, like and dislike, we are left in a state of perpetual fear, which leaves us vulnerable to manipulation through shaming, blaming, and the allure of external entities such as large corporations, political parties, and cults, all of which are seeking something from us. In this manner, the world governs us, dangling carrots on sticks like a donkey rider, and the majority of us, like cattle, follow it with obedience from birth until death. On the other hand, what if we decided not to accept the carrot? What would happen if we made the decision to leave this system? Obtaining freedom from the whims of our surroundings is at the center of the ancient philosophy known as Stoicism. To achieve freedom from this system, it is not necessary to destroy our surroundings. The outside world is not to blame. This is an important point to keep in mind before moving forward. In spite of the fact that we do have some influence over the way the universe operates, we are ultimately unable to exert any control over it. The outside world, with its unavoidable conditions such as the sun, rain, and wind that can have an effect on a farmer's crops, forces itself upon us. The issue is not the system itself, rather, it is the fact that we are enslaved to these conditions that is the source of the inconvenience. Why, then, do we allow ourselves to be carried away by the waves of fate so quickly? Why is it that even the most insignificant misfortunes and strokes of luck have the ability to manipulate our feelings like puppeteers? Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher, offers some insight into this topic by stating that men are disturbed not by things, but by the principles and notions they form concerning things. As an illustration, the viewpoint of Socrates demonstrates that death is not inherently a terrible thing. One of the sources of terror is the way in which we view death as something terrible. When we are confronted with obstacles, disturbances, or grief, we ought to attribute it not to other people but to ourselves, to the principles that we have established for ourselves. As long as we continue to contribute to the system, it will continue to function. The more we attribute misfortune and tragedy to external factors that are natural and beyond our control, the more our emotional state is determined by chance. Stoicism, fortunately, provides us with the invaluable wisdom that we need to finally break free from this system. In order to replace a highly vulnerable, erratic, and turbulent way of life with a peaceful and liberated existence, the following 7 Stoic principles can serve as a guide for us. It is imperative that you check to see if you are subscribed before we start. Again, don't show any signs of weakness. Stay until the very end. Do not pass up the opportunity to gain control over your feelings. Obtain the ebook on self-knowledge right away. The first comment that has been pinned contains a link that will allow you to unlock your full potential. At the top of the list is the ability to remain cheerful regardless of the circumstances. How much time have we squandered anxiously anticipating the arrival of unfavorable occurrences while simultaneously hoping for favorable outcomes? In light of the fact that the future has turned out differently than we had anticipated, how many hours have we already spent crying? Humanity has developed a skillful ability to struggle against destiny and, as a result, to endure the pain that is inevitably brought about by it. Our fear of adversity presents an opportunity for exploitation, and our resistance to uncertainty has become a lucrative industry in its own right. A great number of people make an effort to sell us promises for the future by providing us with the illusion of safety, protection for ourselves and our loved ones, and assurances that we will experience no unpleasant experiences. Being enslaved by our inclinations and aversions, we attempt to outwit fate by manipulating our environment in order to protect ourselves from unfavorable outcomes. Nevertheless, we are unable to secure every door in the enormous mansion that is life, nor are we able to patrol every street and alley in the world of reality. Although a significant amount of time, effort, and financial resources are invested in protective measures, fate always wins out. Being willing to accept whatever comes our way is therefore the key to a genuine escape from the system. When we adopt this point of view, we reduce the likelihood that we will allow others to take advantage of our fears, and we will experience less disruption when we are confronted with adversity. This is in contrast to the alternative, which is to pay a significant amount of money to resist the unavoidable. Seneca articulated his points very well, saying, "Why then should we be angry? Why should we show our sorrow? For whatever comes our way, we are ready. Allow nature to use her own bodies in the manner that she sees fit. No matter what happens, let us maintain a positive attitude and firmly remember that it is not anything that we have created that will be destroyed." In the second place, there is a decreasing concern for reputation. To Stoics, reputation is a preferred indifferent that should be avoided. Although having it is a pleasant experience, it is not necessary for happiness. Furthermore, just like any other external factor, our reputation is ultimately beyond our ability to control. Certain people devote their entire lives to carefully cultivating a positive reputation, only to have it shattered by a single mistake by the end of their lives. On the other hand, there are some people who live lives that are characterized by misconduct and a complete disregard for their position in society, but they unexpectedly find themselves gaining fame and admiration. There is no ambiguity in the conclusion reputation is as arbitrary as the wind. In proportion to the degree to which we place a high value on our standing, we become increasingly dependent on the judgments of others, which are inherently unpredictable. Furthermore, when we place an excessive amount of importance on the opinions of other people, we leave ourselves open to being manipulated and exploited, which ultimately leads to us becoming enslaved to the environment. Epictetus had the opinion that our desire to have a good reputation should not be allowed to interfere with our mental health. We should be willing to accept things like shame, blame, exclusion, and ridicule if doing so allows us to achieve tranquility and freedom. If this is the case, we should be willing to accept these things. As a result of the fact that these latter states are under our control, they are not influenced by the opinions and judgments of other people and are independent of them. Developing the ability to endure, the majority of the time, when we find ourselves in a situation that we do not want to be in, our first instinct is to look for a way out of the situation as quickly as possible. Nevertheless, this is not always possible. As a result, we frequently resort to complaining, lamenting, and feeling miserable in the mistaken belief that we are entitled to a better circumstance. When it comes down to it, we do not have any fundamental rights or entitlements, and the most effective way to deal with a situation is frequently to just accept it and move on. How frequently have we deviated from the path that we had intentionally chosen, betrayed our moral compass, or compromised our values simply because we were unwilling to go through the experience of suffering? Pain possesses a great deal of power, prompting otherwise morally upstanding individuals to engage in unethical behavior or to abstain from performing acts of virtue. Because pain continues to be a tool for control, we unintentionally fall into the trap that is set by those who are attempting to exert control over us when we make an effort to avoid experiencing it. As a result, we become willing to give up our freedom in exchange for a brief reprieve from the feelings of pain and discomfort. When we find ourselves in a situation where it is difficult to endure painful circumstances, we can look to the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. Through his meditations, he teaches us that endurance is not always a negative thing. Endurance can serve a purpose, offering something that is beneficial to us, even if the consequence of it could be death. To quote him, "Everything that occurs is either one that can be endured or one that cannot. If it is something that can be tolerated, then the complaining should stop. If it is intolerable, then you should stop complaining about it. Your destruction will also mean that it will come to an end." Always keep in mind that you have the ability to endure anything that your mind can make you endure if you treat it as if it were in your interest to do so, whether it be in your nature or in your interest. It is possible to draw parallels between this approach and the interpretation that Albert Camus gave of the Greek mythological figure Sisyphus. Sisyphus was sentenced to spend eternity toiling by pushing a rock uphill by the gods. The key to his freedom was to completely accept his fate in such a way that his punishment would no longer be used as a form of punishment. The act of releasing people. It is possible for profound and frequently negative consequences to result from having strong attachments to individuals. It is possible for these attachments to bring us to a point where the fear of losing the person to whom we are attached begins to dictate our lives, compelling us to make desperate moves in order to avoid the separation that is necessarily going to occur. A vivid illustration of the dangers of unhealthy attachments is provided by the love story between Padme and Anakin in the Star Wars prequels. This love story demonstrates how unhealthy attachments invite dark forces to manipulate and enslave a person. Palpatine takes advantage of Anakin's anxiety caused by the prospect of losing Padme, which ultimately leads to disastrous outcomes. In the event that Anakin had taken a different approach to love, one that was not characterized by suffocation, fear, and possessiveness, but rather one that was founded on freedom, trust, and detachment, the dark side would have been unable to exert any influence over him. When it comes to attachment to things that we hold dear, Epictetus provides advice that is not only difficult but also powerful. He suggests that we should view these things as they truly are. They are destined to break or perish. It is his recommendation that we remind ourselves that our affection is not limited to particular instances, but rather encompasses general categories. As an illustration, if we have a strong preference for a ceramic cup, we ought to be aware that this preference is a general preference for ceramic cups. In this manner, we will not be unduly disturbed in the event that it breaks. Similarly, when we kiss our child or spouse, we should do so with the understanding that they are human beings. This will help us avoid being devastated in the event that they were to pass away. Letting go of material possessions. The relentless pursuit of material possessions is the driving force behind the societal rat race, which is characterized by people spending countless hours in jobs that they despise and enduring exhausting routines. The belief that happiness is contingent upon a variety of external factors, such as a particular income, social status, a particular group of friends, or a house in the suburbs, is something that we are conditioned to believe by society. Because we do not have these, we are led to believe that we are unable to experience happiness. On the other hand, we ought to question whether or not these activities are worthwhile. The realm in which fate and fortune have the most influence is the one in which these pursuits primarily fall. This endeavor is analogous to engaging in a struggle against forces that we will never be able to completely triumph over. In the letter that Seneca wrote to Lucilius entitled On True and False Riches, he raises questions about the value of these material possessions, such as the jeweled furniture, the gilded couches, and other similar items. Are they genuinely able to bring us happiness, or are they merely instruments that allow us to put on a show of living a happy life? Seneca contends that our happiness should not be dependent on anything that is external to us, whether it be wealth such as gold and silver, or even the most fundamental necessities such as water and porridge. With this point of view, we are able to be independent of the external circumstances, regardless of how insignificant they may be. Seneca goes on to argue that the individual who is not even slightly influenced by fortune is the one who is able to experience true freedom. He believes that this is the person who is the most free from the influence of fortune. As he does so, he makes reference to the words of his instructor, Attalus, and emphasizes that dwelling on these ideas enables us to strive not merely to appear happy, but to truly be happy, discovering contentment within ourselves rather than seeking validation from other people. Empowering our responses when we are confronted with provocation, insults, or any other attempt to offend us, our natural reaction is frequently one of anger and hostility. It is through this mechanism that the system gives other people the ability to make us feel bad, thereby allowing their actions to have an effect on our own actions. Because of this, our happiness is inadvertently linked to the actions of other people. People who exhibit undesirable characteristics, such as being obnoxious, toxic, narcissistic, or psychopathic, that have the potential to infiltrate our lives in a manner that is analogous to persistent rain clouds harboring the intention of showering us with their malice and causing us to endure suffering. As Viktor Frankl pointed out, however, we have a significant choice to make between stimulus and response. There is a space our ability to choose how we will react is contained within that space. We find both our growth and our freedom in the way that we respond. In the event that we react to these individuals with anger, fear, or hostility, we are essentially handing over the key to our emotional well-being. If, on the other hand, we make the conscious decision to be indifferent to them, we prevent them from penetrating our hearts and minds, which would only serve to pollute the space around us. Because we have made this decision, we are able to protect both our independence and our inner peace. This teaches us a very important lesson. The only way we can be considered slaves is if we choose to be, or if we fail to recognize that we have the ability to choose freedom. The acceptance of one's own mortality. There are those who believe that the fear of death is the fundamental root of all fears. Like the fear of experiencing pain, the fear of death has the potential to significantly influence the way we live our lives. Those who adhere to the Stoic philosophy believe that a life of virtue is more important than a life of longevity. At the same time that we do not have any influence over the length of our lives, we do have some control over the quality of the lives that we lead. Having a fear of death may cause us to exist solely for the purpose of avoiding it, rather than truly living and making life an extraordinary experience. Because of this fear, we are constantly avoiding even the slightest hint of danger and looking for situations that provide an illusion of safety. As a result, we become anxious sheep that follow any shepherd who promises another day of light. However, there is no shepherd who can save us from the inevitable consequence of life, which is the disintegration of our perceived selves and the return of our physical bodies to nature. Being afraid of death is not only pointless but also dangerous, as it has the potential to prevent us from living a life that is courageous and virtuous. Marcus Aurelius contends that death, like growth, maturity, or the appearance of grey hair, is a natural occurrence. He compares it to the first grey hair. Everything is born, dies, and undergoes transitions. Everything comes into existence. An individual who is thoughtful should not approach death with indifference, impatience, or disdain rather. They should acknowledge death as one of the events that are unavoidable in his or her life. In the same way that we look forward to the moment when a child emerges from its mother's womb, we ought to look forward to the particular moment when our soul will emerge from its vessel on earth. That wraps up everything for today. Your enjoyment of this video is my sincere hope. Kindly make it a point to read the ebook that is located in the comment that has been pinned. I can assure you that you will enjoy it. If you have made it this far, please leave a comment so that I know you watched the entire thing until the very end. I would like to express my gratitude for your attention. You are with the one who created you,